Hello and welcome. Here are stories trending beyond the continent. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz says Berlin is preparing a response to what he described as aggressive Chinese trade practices. Speaking after a two-day cabinet retreat in Neu-Isenburg, Merz said Germany will propose measures to address global trade imbalances. He says the proposals will be presented to the European Union in October as Berlin seeks a coordinated European response to China. The move signals growing concerns in Germany over China's trade policies and their impact on European industries.
Wir nehmen zur Kenntnis, dass auch die deutsche Industrie offensichtlich ihre Meinung geändert hat im Hinblick auf diese globalen Ungleichgewichte. Und wir werden uns damit nicht nur befassen, sondern wir werden Entscheidungen treffen. Wenn ich sage wir, heißt das nicht allein das Bundeskabinett, das können wir nicht. Die Handelspolitik liegt in der Verantwortung der Europäischen Union. Aber in der Europäischen Union wird auf eine klare deutsche Position gewartet und die wird es im Oktober geben.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has visited troops on the southeastern front line where Ukrainian forces have recently made gains against Russian positions. Zelensky was accompanied by Ukraine's army chief, Mikhailo Drapati, as he met soldiers deployed to the area. Now, the Ukrainian president also presented medals to troops recognizing their efforts on the battlefield. The visit comes as Kyiv seeks to build on recent advances while fighting with Russian forces continues across the front line. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to continue expanding settlements in the occupied West Bank despite growing international pressure. Netanyahu says his government will press ahead with establishing new settlements and encouraging a major influx of Israelis into the territory. The move is expected to further heighten tensions with Palestinians and renew international criticism of Israel's settlement policy. The West Bank remains a major flashpoint in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, with the expansion of settlements continuing to complicate prospects for lasting peace.
באמת ציבור המתיישבים היקר הזה, שהוא מממש, אנחנו מממשים יחד, ואתם בראש הכוחות, את חזון הדורות. אתם מממשים את חזון ארץ ישראל ואת היתדות שלנו בלב ארצנו, וזאת ארצנו. אתם מכינים את הקרקע לעלייה גדולה מאוד שתבוא. עכשיו אי אפשר להתעלם מהמספרים. אהבתי. 104 יישובים, 104 יישובים שהקמנו והסדרנו ביחד, ו-160 חוות. ועוד היד נטויה. מאמץ אדיר של הממשלה לממש את חזון הדורות.
The Trump administration is intensifying its immigration crackdown, this time targeting people who entered the United States legally on business or tourist visas but later applied for asylum. Now, the State Department plans to revoke B1 and B2 visas issued between 2016 and 2026 to people who have sought or are seeking asylum. The policy could affect up to 200,000 people, according to U.S. officials cited by the Associated Press. The administration says the move is aimed at preventing temporary visas from being used as a pathway to permanent stay through asylum. But the bigger questions are, is this about protecting the visa system or deterring future asylum claims? And where should the line be drawn between immigration enforcement and the right to seek protection? The move also comes amidst a wider immigration crackdown, with more than 175,000 visas already revoked this month. So today we examine what this policy means for the asylum seekers and the direction of U.S. immigration policy. Joining us to unpack this, we have Yemi Fajemisin, a geopolitics analyst in Glasgow, UK, and Levi Mboushou, global affairs analyst in Kinshasa, DR Congo. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on Beyond the Continent.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Let me begin with Yemi. Is revoking these visas just enforcing visa terms, or is it really an attempt to reshape how people can access the asylum system in the first place? What are your thoughts?
Right. Thanks, Dashin. If you look at the backdrop of the story itself, we know that President Trump is made illegal migration the cornerstone of his campaign and even the presidency itself. So he campaigned on the back of he's going to be deporting criminals, he's going to be cracking down illegal migration. And we now see that it's actually involving some illegal migration there as well. People have been deported to countries they've never been in their lives, to El Salvador. We saw deportations to Liberia just a few weeks ago as well. So we've got people visas been revoked, even green cards been revoked. If you're if a vocal critic of Israel, for example, you could be targeted. So that's always been the Trump administration idea. So this announcement is not coming as a shock. But back to your question itself, I suppose the idea around this one is to kind of deter people. They will argue that they're trying to deter people from abusing the B1, B2 non-immigrant visas in order to use that to claim asylum. So it's a form of deterrence and to crack down on the broader immigration restriction framework the administration has got going on. So it's just, okay. I know critics are going to brand that as maybe unfair. Some people will say it's racist, but I think the administration will argue it's a form of deterrence to stop people from abusing the asylum process.
Okay, so let's hear from Levi. Levi, what do you think? Is this uniquely Trump's approach to immigration, or is it part of a longer, bipartisan drift towards stricter asylum and broader U.S. policy?
Well, my take is that Trump always does it with a touch of inhumanity, with a touch of being as radical as he has always wanted to be. The Trump administration is not doing something new. We all know that from Obama through first Trump 1 and then Biden, all these administrations have always cracked down on illegal immigration, and there have been deportations during all this regime. We must note this down. Obama in his time saw deportation of migrants, but now our worry is why is Trump doing it the way he's doing it? Is he doing it with a touch of obstinacy, not wanting to listen to other institutions speaking to him? The legislative arm of that government is there, the judicial arm of that government is there, and we saw recently how the Supreme Court judge who turned down what Trump had termed the crackdown or tightening visas for 75 countries, including mostly African nations. Now, the thing is this, yes, we don't deny that it shouldn't be done. We all know that there are excesses to everything that people do. If you give people the handshake, they will always want an embrace. It's not unknown to everyone that people traveling to the U.S., not just to the U.S., to other countries of the West, they always abuse the immigrant or non-immigrant visa systems. But then the issue here is, why subject humanity to this kind of inhumane and inhuman treatment? Deporting people to where they cannot find shelter, to me, that's no rule. That should be applied to innocent, well, I put innocent in quotes here, because they are human beings. There are some form of human rights that we owe these people. Humanity owes them. So my take is that, yes, it should be done, but it should be regulated.
Okay. All right, now coming back to Yemi, just as Levi has actually said, past administrations, including even Biden's, tightened, asylum rules too. So what sets Trump's approach apart is, the sheer scale, I'm asking, is it the sheer scale? Is it the broader strategy, or is it the specific choice to use visa revocation as a lever?
Right. I think in order to differentiate the Biden administration to the Trump administration, so it's good to discuss in the context of priorities as opposed to laws. So the laws are the same. The difference is the one administration, Biden administration, for example, prioritized something like a pathway. It did some deportations as well, but mostly criminal deportations. But what the Biden administration kind of focused more is a pathway. It gave a lot of people, a lot of nationalities, pathway to actually reside in the U.S. and also some humanitarian protections for some nationalities in the U.S. That's what kind of the Biden administration focused more on that in terms of priority. The Trump administration, however, kind of focused more on enforcement, restrictions, and deterrence, both on the legal and illegal migration part. So that's the kind of difference with the Biden administration to Trump administration. The Trump administration is more vicious and more vigorous in actually targeting, making it very difficult for people to actually settle or even travel to the U.S. So even if you have a valid U.S. visa now, we're now moving to a phase where you feel that the visa is less secure, depending on the mood of the president tomorrow morning. So that's a different ball game now compared to what the Biden administration did, which is actually to create a humanitarian protection and pathway for people to seek protection in the U.S., whereas Trump has been very, very vicious in making sure the restrictions are broad and trying to crack down on what he calls medical tourism as well. So to me, I think that's the fundamental difference between the two administrations.
All right. So, Levi, since losing, a visa doesn't really mean automatic deportation for those with pending asylum claims, what's this policy trying to accomplish? Send a deterrent, serve as deterrent, tighten enforcement, or both?
I'd say, like Yemi said, the laws are always the same in the land. Dura lex, sed lex. The law is the law, and the law cannot be broken. But in some cases, the law could have been bent. We did see it at the time of Biden, at the time of Obama. Yes, we're going to deport them, but we want to make sure that we deport them in a responsible, accountable, and humane manner. We are now seeing a situation where Trump is weaponizing these deportations and this shrinking of the visa space because he wants to lash out at political opponents. Well, that's my take, and I've heard in some corridors some people say this, that Trump is weaponizing this because he knows that he's not welcome, he's not spoken well of in some political quarters and in some diplomatic quarters. So he wants to use this to weaponize the political space. Of course, yes, he has the obligation and the mandate to deliver on campaign promises. But beyond that, we should look at the broader picture of humanity. Yes, we curb abusive entry into our land because with that we have drug dealers, we have criminals, we have terrorists coming into the United States of America. But at the same time, he needs to make sure that it's regulated, because if it's not regulated, he would be getting into the very abuse he himself is trying to deter on the part of migrants. And then Yemi was saying something. I'd love that. Yemi, if we want to name it, we should shame it. If we want to name what Trump is doing, we should be able to say that, of course, we are not going to do prescriptive politicking here, but let's do it in a descriptive manner. Like, okay, here is what is happening, and humanity thinks that this ought not so to be. We find people speaking out to the Trump administration, hey, we think you are overdoing it. We think you're going overboard with this policy. Why don't you do it in a sustainable manner? What is all this ping pong with lives and livelihoods? One administration comes and then they are soft and sober and they're going on easy on migrants, and the other administration comes and is lashing out and it's kind of hammer and nail policy. My take is this should be regulated, and I want to call on Congress to be able to put in a tightening noose around the neck of these administrations so that they are not called upon to do, or they don't feel like they would go ahead with what they're doing, regardless of whose ox is God.
Okay. Now let's talk about, visa control, which sits with the executive branch, Yemi, but asylum rights are protected by statute. Does this policy risk overstepping into a fight over presidential authority?
Right. In the American setting, it's not too different because the way it works over there in America, on the executive level, which is the presidential level, has got a lot of control around some things. So this new proposal, for example, I think is being handled by the Department of Homeland or Department of Home Security, I think it's called. And the executive, which the Trump has authority over, they oversee, they have authority over things like the visa revocation, over things like the issuing of visas, over screening. So the Department of State has authorities over that. However, in the American system, the president cannot bring in a new law. And the difference with this new proposal here is because it touches asylum, Congress actually created the asylum law in the U.S. And what that law says is that it is not illegal for you to seek asylum in America, even if you come in as a B1 or a B2 non-immigrant visas. So most of the immigration advocates now, I suspect they're going to be suing this administration based on that asylum law. Yes, President Trump can do a lot of things. However, he can't rewrite the law. And the Congress actually enacted this asylum law that clearly says that you can claim asylum in the U.S. as long if you're there, whether you go in as a B1 or B2 visas, it doesn't matter. So that's what the gray area is. So obviously, this administration has been trying to bend the rules as much as they can. Yeah. So time will tell. I'm very sure immigration advocates, human rights people are going to be suing the administration. There's a lot of law cases that's been going on. We know, for example, President Trump tried to cancel the birthright citizenship, and the U.S. Supreme Court actually threw the case out, saying, no, this has to be something that needs to be changed by Congress. A stroke of the pen by the president can't just override the birthright citizenship. So we'll be going to that terrain now as well, where immigration attorneys or immigration advocates are going to be going to court to say this actually violates the U.S. asylum law, which the president doesn't have any right to kind of override, since the law clearly says that you can seek asylum in America regardless of how you go into the country, basically. Okay.
Now, looking at America's historic role in refugee protection, do you think that tightening this asylum access, here could actually dent the country's credibility and influence when it comes to migration issues abroad? This is for Levi.
Yes, of course. It dents the image that America has built over the decades, over the centuries. But I won't go too much over the centuries because from the time of the Declaration of Independence and the time they put forth the Constitution, they have always been on the path of calling the entire world to look up to them as the beacon of political righteousness, I must say, from the time they came out of the Emancipation Proclamation, but from the time they put in place the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, they all knew that the world would join them to seek the common good, to put an end to that part of humanity that has suffered. So America opened her arms and said, okay, come thou unto me, come thou into thy father's house and rest. And here together we could pursue life, liberty, and look into the pursuit of happiness, of an entire generation that looked up to them as an example. But what Trump is doing will not only dent his presidency, but it will dent the entire image of the governing class of America, because now Yemi said that law says that B1 and B2 visas also have right to seek asylum. But I'll go beyond that to say that even people who get into the United States without a visa, fraudulently, by some they smuggle themselves and they find themselves inside. They have a right and they are listened to. They are held before the court of law. So what Immigration and Customs Enforcement are doing, putting people's lives and livelihoods at stake, is purely unacceptable. We can't accept that in a modern society. And like talking about the Trump administration and the damage that this does to the image of the entire administration, you can't come to govern and then you spend your time fighting legal tussles with the Supreme Court and with judges over what is right, what is not right. And at the end of the day, 4 years is gone, and that's an entire term, and you have nothing to your credit apart from destroying, causing wars here and there, and then causing a lot of trouble for all of this mass of humanity. Please, let's call on the powers that be, Congress, whatever house of Parliament that's there, let them come in and regulate this. Yes, Mr. President, you would do this, but you would do it within the ambits of the law.
Okay. I think with that, time has actually gone. But then thank you so much, Yemi and Levi, for your time and for speaking to us on this.
Thank you.